I'm Gretchen Grimshaw. I'm the rector at the Episcopal Parish of St. Paul in Newton Highlands. And this is Kristen Gleason.
Hi.
And Kristen is one of our beloved parishioners and one of the members of the core team for our Sanctuary Collaborative. We have a family in Sanctuary in our church, and they've been there since January. So we want to share a little bit of our journey with you this afternoon. We're called the Newton Sanctuary and Solidarity Collaborative. The Episcopal Parish of St. Paul is the host, and we are joined by 7 Jewish communities in Newton, Brookline, and the greater Boston area, and an interreligious community in Needham as our covenantal partners. We've signed a covenant to share this ministry, which we've stopped calling ministry because actually it's a mission, and actually we've stopped calling it a mission because we are nothing if we are not a sanctuary as a church. Our parish has always been progressive and on the forward edge of ministries grounded in dignity, LGBTQ issues, creation care, and now immigration. The 2016 election woke us up. Actually, it was the Muslim ban in January of 2017 that lit the fire under me. And I plugged into a fire that was already sort of smoldering in our community. We have at least one beloved parishioner who has firsthand experience with ICE and the detention of a loved one. So after I returned from the Women's March in Washington, D.C. and the Muslim ban protest at Logan Airport, I went along with one of our wardens, who herself is a second-generation immigrant from Cuba, to the MCAN training for communities interested in offering sanctuary here in this very space in January of 2017. MCAN is the Massachusetts Community Action Network, and we were on our way to changing the things in our wider world that we felt were in direct conflict with our gospel values, the things that we said we believed as Christians following a living God.
So as we know, our baptismal vow binds us to seeking and serving Christ in all persons and to respecting the dignity of every human being. Our scripture also says that we're welcome to a stranger and to love our neighbor without measure, no excuses, but the way Jesus would have welcomed them and loved them. So, as we know, as our diocese mission strategy was being rolled out last spring, we were looking for a way to find a ministry that would help us reimagine who we are, build relationships with other communities of faith, and also engage in the wider world, whether or not that world is documented or not.
Actually, this mission strategy is a little bit upside down for us because first, we engaged with the wider world, and then we began to build relationships around that engagement, other communities who were engaged in the same part of the wider world that was engaging us, and then we reimagined our congregation. And the path seemed vaguely compelling at the time, if not clear, that all of the pillars of our religious authority, our Holy Scripture, our baptismal covenants, and our diocesan mandate compelled us to explore sanctuary. And don't think that it didn't terrify us to death. But when we weighed it against the pillars of our authority and the authority of our faith, we really felt as a congregation that we had no choice. The parish of St. Paul had a few resources that made us a great candidate for a host for sanctuary, much to our dismay at the beginning. We had a whole unused lower level. It had served well as Sunday school space when we had a couple of dozen kids coming every Sunday morning. But even then, it was empty and dark for 6.5 days of the week, and it's beautiful space. It had once had a nursery school, a preschool in it, so it had lots of open space, rows of windows that lined that space, 2 bathrooms, and a beautiful big kitchen with windows that look out onto the meditation garden. Also, we had just renovated our heating system along with our creation care objectives, and I see some people here who helped us with that. And so 2 years ago, we would not have had a separate heating zone in the lower level. And we would not have had air conditioning units in the choir room, the rector's study, and the parish office. And those rooms would not have been usable in the summer, therefore. So this massive $250,000 project that we undertook the year before we engaged in sanctuary actually provided absolutely non-negotiable, necessary facility for us to entertain this ministry. And third, we have a community with an amazing heart and a rare willingness to take risks, even with our own sustainability. The gospel says nothing about the sustainability of the church. It only talks about the building of the kingdom. And so our community meant to serve with the integrity of our faith.
So for the past 10 years, we've really been looking for a way to use those gifts that Gretchen mentioned. We're looking for a way to use the beautiful space that we had access to that was underutilized to really serve God's mission more than just on a Sunday. We were also looking to find a way to collaborate with more of our neighbors. We're in Newton, and Newton is
65% Jewish.
Thank you, yeah. So we were looking for ways to interact with all of our neighbors. And we were also looking for ways to welcome more families and also more diverse families into our family.
So those three goals sort of matched up with our resources. And the more we matched our goals to our resources, the more frightened and engaged we became. And so Kristen and I want to say to those of you who have resources to offer and dreams that you think might make a difference in this world and are just waiting for a nod from God to make those dreams come true, be careful what you pray for, because God is listening, but probably with a much bigger purview and likely a more sacrificial proposal than you might have had in mind.
So we began our conversations as a community meeting several Sundays after church in the February of 2017. And it was really eye-opening and an honest conversation that we had. We looked at all the possible ways we could use our space. We had a lot of very open and honest conversations about the pros and the cons of what this could mean for us. A lot of you can see these are kind of a blast from the past for me. I haven't seen these in a while, but these were the boards where we just stood up as a group and said, these are the things that would be a positive for us, these are things that would be negative. The negatives really did tend to coalesce around legality, in terms of, are we equipped to do this legally? Are we allowed to do this? Is someone gonna get in trouble? I think the word is not harboring here. It's not. We're offering a place for someone to rest in our realm, and when you are open about that, we brought our group to that conclusion.
And so on June 17th, 2017, after about 4 months of conversations, our small parish voted almost unanimously to offer our sacred space for the dignity and sanctuary of an undocumented family at immediate threat of deportation. We finally understood that there were few certainties about how this would go, so we stopped being stumbled on those questions. We let them go. We let go the answers that we would never find with respect to the actual risk that we were undertaking and the legality of the work, because there just were no answers around those things. Concurrently with our parish conversations over the spring last year, we had been meeting since March with several Jewish communities who had already voted to be covenantal partners in Sanctuary Collaborative. In a small Episcopal church, ours, that attracted a mere 75 people, even on an annual meeting Sunday, we were regularly filling our parish hall with close to 100 prospective companions in this ministry. Our average Sunday attendance was dropping. Our average weekly engagement was and continues to be on fire.
So today, our partners include so many that actually need to read the list to give you a full perspective of who's joined us. We have Congregation Dorothy Siddick, we have Temple Emmanuel in Newton, Temple Sinai and TBZ in Brookline, the Newton Center Minyan, the Hebrew College, and the Boston Workmen's Circle, the Needham Interfaith Community, as well as a collective of relatively non-affiliated individuals from a very wide community that have sought us out to help with this project.
From other faith communities that had not voted to be completely behind this work.
So in July of 2017, we had our covenant signing with that group that I just mentioned. They all came into the space. We signed our covenant. We talked about what sanctuary means to us.
We surpassed our fire code on July 24th.
We did.
I don't know if that has ever happened at that church before. We can't surpass the fire code on Easter, but we did. As Kristen said, we asked folks what sanctuary means to them.
And what was amazing about this night was that even though we had arranged it, we really didn't have to run the meeting. It was our whole group that kind of took it over and ran with the energy. So this is one of our colleagues from the Newton Center, Minion here, and she is just a force of nature. She really has been amazing in this whole process, but she really helped to lead this whole group as well. So it's really a collaborative.
So we asked people what sanctuary means to you. Sanctuary is the offer of a sacred space that serves as a temporary way station, a stopping point on a journey where vulnerable families can rest and regroup. Everyone had a different version of what sanctuary meant, but this is sort of what we came to. Not safety, not protection, but friendship and a community of support. In January 18, we welcomed our first family. Both kids are U.S. citizens. Both are in the Newton school system. Actually, both are in school in Newton. Both go to sleep every night in the company of their mother and the care of a huge community of friends on whom they know they can depend. A community who also feels at this time in our national life that we are aliens in this land and citizens without a country. We have a lot in common with the family in our midst. Mia is 3, David is 12. This is Mia in my study this summer, and David at the Barbara Harris camp.
And so as we've grown, we have over 500 people who have grown to become volunteer members of our group. So as you can see here, there are several different tasks that the volunteers help us with. It's traditional things like laundry, driving kids to school, helping to translate, provide ESL training, cleaning, shopping, all of that. And then also there are, reaching lawyers. It's been a vast collaborative of people that have we've been able to tap into their professional resources to help us get this family what they need. There are also some unexpected things that happen along the way, such as a particular medical emergency that happened one evening when we happened to have 2 companions staying. One was a physician, and one was a person who typically takes the tea. And that day she happened to drive her car. It was the one time she ever drove her car there. The mother had a medical emergency. The physician who was there, as a regular volunteer companion, was able to sense that there was an urgency to get her to the hospital.
It was really quite traumatic because the woman who's been in sanctuary in our church has not left the sanctuary since January 15th. But with a medical emergency, we really had no choice. So we took her to the hospital. I put on my collar and went to the hospital and stayed with her in her room until they released her a couple days later, because we couldn't take the risk that and the collaborative jumped in and took care of her 2 kids like nobody's business. It was really something to behold.
One of the biggest volunteer efforts that we have is the recruitment and scheduling of volunteer companions. So we have volunteer companions 24/7, 2 at a time at least, in the space. They don't necessarily always interact with the family, but they're always there and ready to be of assistance if needed for any sort of issue. Each companion completes a training that is held at various times throughout the year. They're all safe church trained and vetted.
And that's 300 companions a month if you're doing the math. 10 companions a day times 30 is 300 companions a month. If you ever need to sign up companions for something like that, this is a big plug for Sign Up Genius.
It's been helpful, yeah.
We have nowhere to hold our Sunday school now. This is a great slide. This artwork is by Jan Richardson, and I've put the name underneath, but this one is the best of all. It's 10 pounds in an 8-pound bag. Where we were once using our space just on Sunday mornings and for an occasional AA meeting or other group meeting, we are now overflowing 24 hours a day with people in the space. The family occupies the former Sunday school space, and the 2 volunteer rooms where people sleep every night and stay all day every day are the former choir room. Believe me, the choir is not always altogether happy about this, and the former youth director's office.
So, as Gretchen said, be careful what you pray for. God is listening. and it may not always be from the vantage point that you had intended.
But the gifts are overflowing. This next slide is from our shared interreligious Seder that we had in April, and again, our parish hall was overflowing. And this week we are celebrating Sukkot, so tomorrow after church, 3 communities in Hebrew College will be building a sukkah on our front lawn, and next Saturday night we will be inviting everyone in our community and their communities and every kid in communities far and wide to come and celebrate Sukkot, which is the perfect Jewish holiday to sort of dovetail with sanctuary. It's the offering of holy shelter.
So this is a quick image of the 1-year anniversary party that we had. It was great. People were able to kind of reconnect with each other, share what this past year has meant to them. And
potluck.
our sanctuary has grown, our community, but not exactly the way we had imagined.
We submitted these slides last week, but upon review, I think the more accurate text would have been, we are trying to live our faith with integrity. We are trying to practice what we preach. And because of the effort and the intention and the faithfulness, we are not just a church of a different color, we are a different way of being church. We are a long way from knowing where we're going, but we are what we are willing to risk. And we know on whom we can depend and lean when we are in need of help, when we are unsure of our worthiness for this mission, and when we feel too tired to take another breath. Every Sunday morning, we worship with a vulnerable family just beneath our feet. And as it happens almost every Sunday morning, we start to smell the onions and peppers from their breakfast almost exactly when we start to consecrate the Eucharist. It's like clockwork. Sanctuary has replaced or maybe reshaped all of our programming. And because this ministry is not for everyone, our attendance and our finances are always seeming to be on the line.
Just wanted to thank the Episcopal City Mission. We were awarded with this Social Justice Award this year for what we're doing, and everyone in our parish. Okay, so sanctuary is not for everyone. It is the light that God places in our midst. Where is God calling you to offer your body for this life of the world? Our faith calls us to literally transform the world, and we can do it together, one church, one person, one step at a time.
Onward. Thank you.